In the village of Gidalo, two friends were inseparable, their bond unbreakable. But when love entered the picture, everything changed. Bayo married Aduni and was blessed with children, while Binga struggled with childlessness. Desperate to help his friend, Bayo made an unusual proposal. Binga suggested Bisola sleep with Bayo to have a child. After much hesitation, Bisola reluctantly agreed. Their secret plan led to a child, but it came with unforeseen consequences. As years passed, resentment brewed within Binga towards his own son. The truth of their deception would soon unravel in a shocking confrontation. In the small village of Gidalo, two men, Binga and Bayo, had been inseparable since childhood. They had grown up together, played together, and even chosen the same profession. They were both renowned hunters in the village. Their bond was so strong that whenever you saw Binga, Bayo wouldn't be far behind, and the reverse was true as well. The townsfolk often said, "Where Binga goes, Bayo follows." And this saying held true in every aspect of their lives. The two friends had made a name for themselves as skilled hunters, supplying bushmeat to the wealthiest families in the village. One day they went to the home of Chief Adero, a prominent man in Gidalo, to deliver fresh bushmeat. They were greeted warmly by Chief Adero's daughter Aduni. Aduni served them food and palm wine, and as she poured the drink, her eyes lingered on Bayo. She smiled and said, "You're very handsome, Bayo." Bayo blushed and replied, "And you, Aduni, are extremely beautiful." The two exchanged giggles and secret glances filled with admiration. From that moment, a spark was lit between them. Over the following months, Bayo and Aduni's relationship blossomed into love. A few months later, they were married in a grand ceremony attended by the entire village. Everyone celebrated the union, and Bayo, who had married into a wealthy family, became prosperous himself. He lacked nothing, and life seemed to keep getting better. A year after their marriage, Aduni gave birth to twin boys. The village rejoiced yet again, and Bayo's luck seemed unstoppable. A year later, another set of twins followed. It was as though the gods had showered Bayo and his family with endless blessings. Meanwhile, Binga had also fallen in love. He married Bisola, the orange seller. Though their wedding wasn't as grand as Bayo's, it was filled with love and joy. However, unlike Bayo, Binga and Bisola struggled to have children. Year after year passed, but they remained childless. This deeply troubled Binga and his wife, and they prayed fervently to the gods for a child. Seeing his friend's sorrow, Bayo, out of the deep bond they shared, decided to help. He took Binga and Bisola to visit a renowned herbalist in a neighboring village, Mama Oju. Mama Oju was known to help couples with fertility issues. When they arrived, they were welcomed, but the herbalist's consultation came with a steep price, far more than Binga could afford. Once again, Bayo's generosity shined through. He paid for all the tests and herbs. Mama Oju tested both Binga and Bisola and gave them some herbal drinks to take home. They were told to return after 2 days to receive the results. Filled with hope, the couple went home and awaited the fateful results. 2 days later, Binga and Bisola returned to the herbalist. Mama Oju delivered the news with a heavy heart. "Binga," she said, "you are the reason for your childlessness. Your condition, in modern terms, is called low sperm count. It will be difficult for you to impregnate your wife." Binga was crushed. "Why me?" he cried, his voice trembling with agony. Bisola, heartbroken but determined to stay strong, comforted her husband as they left the herbalist's home. A week later, Binga's mother, Mama Ifan, came to visit. Bisola, ever the dutiful wife, rushed to greet her mother-in-law. However, instead of receiving a warm embrace, Bisola was met with a harsh slap across the face. "You are useless," Mama Ifan shouted. "You've been married for years and yet you've given my son no children. What is wrong with you?" Bisola fell to the ground in tears. Bisola wept, expressing her deep desire for children, countering Mama Ifan's harsh words. Mama Ifan's cruel accusations suggested that Bisola's womb was barren, threatening to find another wife for her son. Despite the insults, Bisola chose silence. Enduring the humiliation to protect her husband's dignity, Binga returned home, unaware of the harsh words that had been exchanged about his wife. Mama Ethan continued her tirade, oblivious to Binga's arrival and the emotional turmoil it caused. Mama Ethan boasts about finding a fertile woman for Binga, dismissing his wife as useless. Binga, frustrated, defends his wife against Mama Ethan's harsh words. He asserts his stance, demanding Mama Ethan to return to her own home. The next morning, Mama Ethan leaves, grumbling about Binga's choice. Life in the village grew increasingly difficult for Bisola. The villagers too began mocking her for her inability to conceive. Everywhere she turned, whispers and sneers followed her. 5 years into their marriage and still without a child, Bisola felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. One day, as she returned from the market, a young boy offered to help carry her goods. Before she could thank him, the boy's mother rushed out and yanked her child away. "If you need a child to help you, why don't you give birth to one yourself?" the woman sneered. Bisola, humiliated, walked home in tears. That night, Binga woke Bisola. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Binga hesitantly reveals his unusual request to his wife. Bisola expresses her disbelief and outrage at the suggestion. Binga, with tears streaming down his face, tried to persuade her. He explained that no one would ever know, that it could be their secret and would save them from the shame of childlessness. But Bisola was disgusted by the idea and refused. "When the gods decide we will have children, I will not commit such an abomination," she snapped. Binga insisted on the urgency of their situation, highlighting the herbalist's warning about his condition. He expressed his frustration over the blame placed on his wife, emphasizing their dwindling chances. Weeks of silence and rejection took their toll on Bisola, who felt the strain of Binga's cold demeanor. Eventually, the emotional burden became too heavy for Bisola, leading her to reconsider her stance. She agreed to fulfill his request, her voice heavy with sadness as she sought to bring him happiness. Binga's face brightened at her words, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. He embraced her tightly, gratitude pouring from his heart as he called her his wife. But a shadow of worry crossed Bisola's face as she voiced her concern about the man's return. Binga hesitated for a moment, weighing his options carefully. He finally spoke, emphasizing the importance of trust and character. After days of thought, Binga suggested a name, Bayo, his best friend. Bisola reacted with shock, her face displaying disbelief at the suggestion. "You want me to sleep with your best friend, but," she exclaimed. Binga expressed his deep bond with Bayo, likening him to a brother. He pointed out Bayo's wife's experience with twins, suggesting he would be the ideal candidate. Despite her reluctance, Bisola ultimately agreed to the proposal, trusting Binga's judgment. 3 days later, Binga approached Bayo to discuss the sensitive request. Bayo was taken aback and immediately declined the offer, visibly shocked by the suggestion. He expressed his bewilderment, making it clear that he felt unqualified for such a role. Binga, in a state of desperation, pleaded with Bayo, threatening to take drastic measures if he didn't receive help. Despite his reservations, Bayo finally acquiesced to Binga's pleas, feeling a mix of compassion and dread. The plan was executed in secret as Binga had envisioned. 2 weeks later, Bisola was confirmed pregnant. Binga was overjoyed. When her belly started to swell, it became the talk of the village. 9 months later, Bisola gave birth to a healthy baby boy, whom they named Olamide, or simply Ola. For a while, life seemed perfect again. However, when Ola turned 2 years old, things began to take a dark turn. Binga grew increasingly hostile toward the child, beating him at every opportunity. Whether it was for not eating fast enough or for playing too loudly, Binga found any excuse to unleash his anger on the boy. Bisola often tried to intervene, reminding her husband that Ola was still very young. Binga's response was always the same. "Are you trying to say he's not my son, or that I don't know what's good for him?" Bisola, fearing for her own safety, often retreated silently, but her heart ached for her son. As the years went by, Binga's resentment toward Ola only grew. By the time the boy was 7, Binga's punishments became even more severe. One day after catching him playing without shoes, Binga beat Ola mercilessly. He even went so far as to stuff pepper into the young boy's nose. Bisola, terrified and helpless, could do nothing to stop her husband's cruelty. One day as she applied ointment to Ola's wounds, the boy asked, "Mama, is Papa really my father?" Bisola's heart sank, but she quickly covered her fear. Of course he is. He corrects you because he loves you. But Ola remained confused, unable to understand why his father treated him with such hatred. Years passed, and at the age of 19, Ola wanted to start a business selling Ankara fabric. He approached his father for money, but Binga refused. Embarrassed and feeling useless, Ola confided in his mother. Bisola promised to find a way to get him the money, but it would take time. That same week, Bayo and Aduni visited Binga and Bisola. Aduni, known for her kind-hearted nature, prepared food for everyone, ensuring that every guest felt welcome. Ola was tasked with fetching drinks for the guests, a job he took seriously as he balanced the drinks carefully on a tray. However, as Ola returned, one drink slipped from his hand, crashing to the floor in a mess of glass and liquid. Binja, furious at the mishap, shouted harshly at Ola in front of the guests, displaying his disdain without a second thought. In a fit of rage, he slapped Ola, kicked him and slammed his head against the wall, showcasing his volatile temper. Aduni screamed, pleading for Binja to stop his relentless assault. Despite her cries, Binga continued, driven by his own anger, until Bayo stepped in. Binja defiantly declared, "He's my son, I'll discipline him as I see fit," glaring at Bayo. That evening, Aduni's frustration boiled over as she could no longer hold back her feelings. She confronted Bayo. "How can you just sit back and watch your friend treat his son this way? You need to talk some sense into him." But Bayo, weary of the situation, cautioned his wife, "It's not our place to interfere in Binga's family matters." The following day, Aduni, unwilling to stand by any longer, visited Bisola and Ola in secret. She brought them fruits and healing herbs and advised Bisola to send Ola away before Binga killed him with his cruelty. Bisola, filled with fear, refused. "He'll kill me if I send our son away," she whispered. But Ola, overhearing the conversation, pleaded with his mother. "Mama, I want to leave. I can't stay here anymore." Aduni, seeing the desperation in the boy's eyes, asked how much money Ola needed to start his business. She immediately gave him the full amount, along with some extra. Overjoyed, Ola thanked her, and later that evening, he went to speak with a fabric merchant in the village. To Binja's surprise, it seemed Ola was preparing to start his business. Enraged, Binja searched Ola's room and found the money Aduni had given him. Without hesitation, Binja started a fire in the front yard and began burning the money one note at a time. Ola returned home to find his father standing by the fire laughing. "Why are you doing this?" he screamed. But Binja only pushed him away and continued burning the money. Ola watched in despair as his future went up in flames. That night, a broken and defeated Ola packed his belongings and left the village seeking refuge at Bayo's house. Aduni welcomed him with open arms and suggested he leave the village entirely. They planned for him to stay with Aduni's brother in a neighboring village. Ola agreed, and early the next morning he began his journey. Back at Binja's house, chaos erupted when Binja discovered Ola was missing. Accusing Bisola of knowing his whereabouts, he beat her mercilessly. But Bisola truly had no idea where their son was. Meanwhile, Ola arrived at Bayo's home, where Aduni offered him food and comfort. She promised to help him leave the village safely, but Binja wasn't far behind. Realizing that Aduni had given Ola the money, he grabbed his machete and stormed toward Bayo's home in a rage. Bursting through the door, he demanded that Bayo hand over his son. Bayo tried to calm his friend, but Binja was beyond reason. Binja threatened, her voice laced with urgency. "I'll expose your secrets if you don't give me my son." Aduni, her face filled with confusion, asked, "What secrets?" Bayo, now trembling, pleaded with Binja to stay quiet. Binja only smiled wickedly, relishing the moment. "Oh, you didn't tell her, did you?" Binja sneered, reveling in the tension. "Your precious husband slept with my wife and got her pregnant. That boy, that bastard, is his son." Aduni's world shattered in an instant. She looked at Bayo for answers, but he couldn't meet her eyes. "Is this true?" she demanded. Bayo, filled with shame, nodded. "But Binga begged me to do it. He and Bisola couldn't have children. I only helped them because they're our friends." Aduni's voice was filled with disgust. "You couldn't refuse. If Binja asked you to sleep with his wife, you just did it. What kind of man are you?" In the corner, Ola, who had overheard everything, emerged from hiding. "So you're my real father?" he asked Bayo, tears streaming down his face. Bayo, now sobbing, could only nod. The truth was out, and the village soon knew of Binga's inability to father children. He turned to alcohol to numb his pain, becoming a full-time drunk. The farmlands and roads of Gidalo echoed with the tale of Binga's downfall. His once proud name became a sad reminder of secrets and deceit. As for Bizola, tired of the endless abuse, she left Binga for good, leaving him alone to drown in his sorrows.